I thought the worst thing that could happen at a prestigious private academy was bad grades. I had no idea that 3 months after the first day of classes, my 17-year-old daughter would be found unconscious in our bathroom, an empty pill bottle on the floor beside her. I had no idea that the school principal would hand me a single sheet of paper with one word printed on it: withdrawal. And I certainly had no idea that the son of the district attorney, the daughter of a federal judge, and the nephew of a state senator had spent 6 months systematically destroying her, while every adult in authority looked the other way. When the juvenile investigator smirked in my face and said, "Teenage drama, Mr. Collins. Kids are cruel. Nothing criminal here." I felt something cold and familiar click inside me. The same feeling I hadn't experienced in 17 years, not since I'd taken off the uniform for the last time. I'd spent 22 years in places I couldn't talk about, doing things I couldn't write about. I'd tracked people who thought they were untouchable. I'd dismantled networks that seemed invincible. Now those skills were needed at home. The quiet life. Before 6 months earlier, our lives had been predictable and safe. Every morning I woke at 0600, a habit impossible to break after 2 decades of military discipline, and padded downstairs to brew coffee. Our house in the Oak Hill suburb was modest by neighborhood standards, but for me and my daughter Emma, it was perfect. 3 bedrooms, a small garden where I grew tomatoes and basil, a front porch with 2 rocking chairs where we'd sit on summer evenings. The smell of coffee beans grinding was my favorite sound in the world now, so ordinary, so peaceful. Emma would shuffle down around 7, still half asleep, her long auburn hair tangled from sleep, wearing one of my old service PT shirts that hung to her knees. She'd curl up in the breakfast nook with her biology textbook, highlighting passages in yellow, while I made scrambled eggs and toast. "Dad, did you know that octopuses have 3 hearts?" she'd say, not looking up from her book. I did not know that. "And their blood is blue because it has copper instead of iron." "That's actually pretty cool, Em." These were our rituals. This was our life after her mother died 4 years ago. Just the 2 of us figuring things out together. Emma was quiet, thoughtful, more comfortable with books than crowds. She'd inherited her mother's gentle nature, her curiosity about the world, her hazel eyes that changed color depending on the light. From me, she'd gotten stubbornness and a tendency to overthink everything. She'd been homeschooled through middle school, my choice, after Margaret's death. I couldn't handle the thought of Emma dealing with grief alone in some institutional hallway while I was at work. So I'd left my consulting job, lived off savings and Margaret's life insurance, and taught her myself. We'd studied history at Civil War battlefields, biology in state parks, literature curled up on the couch with the dog between us. But by sophomore year, Emma had started talking about college, real college, competitive college. "Dad, I need transcripts from an actual school," she'd said. "I need AP classes and lab sciences and normal teenager stuff." I'd resisted at first. The world outside our small bubble felt dangerous in ways I couldn't articulate. But her guidance counselor, a kind woman named Mrs. Patterson, who did virtual check-ins, had been firm. "She's brilliant, Mr. Collins, but she needs peer interaction. She needs challenge. You can't protect her from the world forever." So I'd researched schools. Public schools in our district were overcrowded, underfunded. I wanted something better for Emma, somewhere she could thrive, somewhere safe, somewhere worthy of her potential. That's how we found Ashford Academy. The Golden Cage. Ashford Academy sat on 40 manicured acres at the edge of Oak Hill, its limestone buildings and copper-roofed towers looking more like a small college than a high school. The tuition was $38,000 a year, more than I'd earned in my first 3 years of military service combined. But they offered Emma a partial merit scholarship after reviewing her homeschool portfolio and test scores. "She's exactly the kind of student we want," the admissions director had said, a polished woman named Dr. Vanessa Sterling with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Ashford values intellectual excellence and character." The rest I'd cover with what remained of Margaret's life insurance. It felt right, somehow, using that money to give Emma opportunities her mother would have wanted for her. On the first day of junior year, I drove Emma through Ashford's wrought iron gates, past the fountain with its bronze statue of the school's founder, and watched her walk into the main building with her backpack and a nervous smile. She wore new clothes, a carefully chosen outfit that the internet had assured her was private school appropriate, but not trying too hard. Dark jeans, a simple sweater, canvas sneakers. "You've got this, Em," I'd said before she got out of the car. "I know." But her hands had been shaking. I'd waited in the parking lot for 20 minutes just to make sure she didn't come running back out. When she didn't, I'd driven home, already feeling the empty quiet of the house settling around me. The first cracks. For the first month, everything seemed fine. Emma came home each afternoon with stories about her classes, her AP literature teacher who assigned Faulkner and didn't care if students found it confusing, her chemistry lab partner who'd accidentally created a small fire during an experiment, the massive library with its rare book collection. "There are first editions, Dad, first editions of Hemingway, just sitting there." She seemed lighter, happier. I'd watch her text with new friends, or so I assumed, and felt a cautious relief. Maybe I'd been wrong to worry. Maybe Ashford really was the right choice. But sometime in October, the tone began to shift. Emma grew quieter. The dinner conversations grew shorter. She stopped volunteering stories about her day and would only offer monosyllables when I asked direct questions. "How was school?" "Fine." "What did you do in chemistry?" "Lab stuff." "Everything okay with your classes?" "Yeah, Dad, I'm just tired." I told myself it was normal teenage withdrawal. She was adjusting, finding her place. I didn't want to hover or suffocate her with questions, so I gave her space. In November, I noticed she'd stopped eating breakfast. She'd come downstairs already dressed, grab a granola bar, and head straight to her room until it was time to leave. "Not hungry?" I'd ask. "Early morning." She started wearing her hair differently, always pulled back tightly, sometimes hidden under a hood. The old PT shirt stayed folded in her drawer. Instead, she wore dark, oversized hoodies that swallowed her frame. One evening in late November, I was folding laundry in the hallway when I heard her crying in her room. Not loud, theatrical teenage crying. Quiet, muffled sobbing that she was clearly trying to hide. I knocked softly. "Em, you okay?" "I'm fine, just stressed about midterms." "Can I come in?" A pause. Then, "I'm really tired, Dad. Can we talk tomorrow?" Tomorrow came, and she'd already left for school early. "Debate team meeting," read the note on the kitchen counter, but Emma wasn't on the debate team. The concerned father. By December, I couldn't ignore it anymore. Emma had lost weight, enough that her jeans hung loose at the waist. Dark circles shadowed her eyes. She spent every evening locked in her room, and when I knocked, she'd insist she was studying or on a video call. I tried reaching out to the school. I called her guidance counselor, a man named Mr. Brandon Hartwick, who spoke in the smooth, practiced tones of someone who'd perfected the art of saying nothing. "Emma is adjusting well academically," he assured me. "Her grades are excellent. She's a model student. I'm not worried about her grades. I'm worried about her. Mr. Collins, the transition from homeschooling to an institutional environment is always challenging. Give her time. Teenagers need space to individuate. She's not eating. She's not sleeping. Something is wrong. I'll keep an eye on her. But I really think you're worrying unnecessarily. Emma strikes me as remarkably resilient." I hung up unsatisfied. That evening I tried a different approach. "Em, if something's happening at school, if someone's giving you trouble, you can tell me." She looked up from her laptop, her expression carefully neutral. "Nothing's happening. Because if kids are being mean, or if you're feeling isolated—" "Dad," her voice was firm. "I'm fine. School is fine. Can you please just trust me?" I wanted to. God, I wanted to. But every instinct I'd honed over 22 years of reading people, assessing threats, sensing danger, all of it was screaming that something was deeply wrong. The breaking point Christmas break came and went. Emma barely spoke. She stayed in her room, came out only for meals she barely touched, avoided eye contact. On New Year's Eve, I suggested we watch a movie together, our old tradition, but she claimed she had a headache. I lay awake that night, listening to the house settle, and realized with cold certainty that I was losing her. Not to distance or adolescence or natural growing up. I was losing her to something darker. January 7th was a Thursday. Emma had left for school at the usual time. I'd spent the morning working from home, contract security consulting work that paid well and required minimal effort. Around noon, my phone rang. Unknown number. "Mr. Collins? This is Nurse Patterson from Ashford Academy. Emma became ill during third period. Can you come pick her up?" I was out the door before she finished the sentence. When I arrived, Emma was sitting in the nurse's office, pale and hollow-eyed, staring at the floor. She wouldn't look at me. The nurse, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes, handed me a form to sign and murmured quietly, "She had a panic attack. Very severe. She's been asking to go home for the past hour." In the car, Emma was silent. I waited until we were almost home before I spoke. "Em, we need to talk." "I don't want to talk." "Sweetheart, please. Just stop, Dad." Her voice cracked. "Just stop asking me questions. Stop trying to fix everything. You can't fix this." I pulled into our driveway and turned off the engine. The silence stretched between us, thick and suffocating. "Then help me understand." She shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "You wouldn't understand. You'd just make it worse. Try me." For a long moment I thought she would. I saw her waver, saw her lips part, as if she was about to speak. But then she grabbed her backpack and fled into the house, the discovery. That night, I couldn't sleep. Around 2 in the morning, I got up and went to Emma's room. The door was ajar. Inside, she was asleep, finally, curled on her side, her phone still clutched in one hand. I shouldn't have. I knew I shouldn't have. Privacy, trust, boundaries. All the parenting articles I'd read after Margaret died had been firm on this. But something deeper than rational thought was driving me now. The same instinct that had kept me alive in Fallujah and Kandahar and a dozen other places I couldn't name. I carefully eased the phone from her hand. She didn't stir. I stepped into the hallway and unlocked it. I'd set up her phone years ago and still had the passcode, though I'd never used it. The screen glowed to life. Messages. Hundreds of them. I opened the app and felt the world tilt. Group chat. The scholarship project. Madison_Ashford. Did you see her shoes today? Walmart clearance vibes. Tyler_K. C. My dad's housekeeper wears better clothes. Peyton_R. She literally smells like thrift stores and desperation. Madison_Ashford. At everyone. Operation Invisible is working. She sat alone at lunch for the 47th day in a row. Tyler_KC. Streak continues Peyton_R. Wait. She tried to sit with the sophomore art kids yesterday. Madison_Ashford. I handled it. Told them she has lice. They move tables. Tyler_KC. Photo attachment. A picture of Emma in the hallway, her backpack open, books scattered on the floor. Caption. Oops. Madison_Ashford. Photo attachment. Emma's locker, covered in sticky notes. I zoomed in. Each note had a single word. Charity case. Scholarship rat. Poor. Unwanted. Leave. Peyton_R. She looked like she was going to cry in English today. Madison_Ashford. Good. Maybe she'll finally get the message, I scrolled up. Days, weeks, months of messages. A systematic, coordinated campaign of psychological warfare. They'd created fake social media accounts to send her cruel messages. They'd spread rumors that she'd cheated her way into Ashford. They'd excluded her from every group project, every social event, every casual hallway conversation. They'd made her invisible and hypervisible at the same time, ignored by the student body, targeted by them. There were screenshots of Emma's own messages to them, desperate, pleading attempts to understand what she'd done wrong, apologies for offenses she hadn't committed. Did I say something? I'm sorry if I upset you. Can we please just talk? And their responses, silence, or worse, laughing emoji reactions, screenshots shared in the group chat with mocking commentary. My hands were shaking. The phone screen blurred. I sat down on the hallway floor, my back against the wall, and kept scrolling. November 23rd, Thanksgiving week. Tyler_KC. She asked if she could join debate team Madison_Ashford. What did you say? Tyler_KC. I'm the president, so I said we'd consider it. Then I forgot to add her to the roster, Peyton_R. She still showed up to the first meeting Madison_Ashford. Of course she did. Desperate much? Tyler_KC. I told her the meeting was cancelled. Everyone else knew it wasn't Peyton_R. Photo attachment. Emma standing outside the debate room, looking confused, while through the window you could see the team meeting inside. December 14th. Madison_Ashford. Okay, new plan. Tyler_KC. Madison_Ashford. Winter formal is coming. We need to make sure nobody asks her Peyton_R. I don't think anyone would anyway. Madison_Ashford. Doesn't matter. Insurance. Tyler, you're friends with most of the junior guys. Pass it along. Anyone who asks Emma Collins gets blacklisted. Tyler_KC, done. Madison_Ashford. Peyton, same with the girls. If anyone tries to include her or be nice, they're out Peyton_R. On it January 3rd, 4 days ago. Tyler_KC. She brought homemade cookies to class today. Madison_Ashford. What Tyler_KC. Like a Tupperware of cookies. Offered them to people. Said they were for getting back from break. Peyton_R. That's so pathetic I almost feel bad. Madison_Ashford. Don't. Did anyone take one? Tyler_KC. I told everyone they were probably poisoned. She ended up throwing them away Peyton_R. I saw her crying in the bathroom after Madison_Ashford. Perfect. I couldn't breathe. The hallway was closing in. My daughter, my smart, kind, gentle daughter, had spent 6 months in hell. And she'd never said a word. I kept scrolling, my vision tunneling, looking for something, anything, that would tell me why. What had Emma done to deserve this? What had triggered this calculated cruelty? Finally, I found it. August 28th, the second week of school. Madison_Ashford. So the new girl Tyler_K.C., the scholarship kid, Madison_Ashford. Yeah, she got an A on the Fitzgerald essay Peyton_R. So, Madison_Ashford. I got an A minus Tyler_KC. Okay? Madison_Ashford. I've never gotten an A minus in anything, ever. Peyton_R. She's smart, I guess. Madison_Ashford. She's a threat. Mr. Patterson literally used her essay as an example in class. This is what literary analysis should look like. In front of everyone. Tyler_KC. That's annoying, Madison_Ashford. It's more than annoying. She's here on charity, and she's showing up people who actually belong Peyton_R. What do you want to do about it? Madison_Ashford. Make sure she knows her place. And make sure she leaves before she messes up anyone's class. Rank Tyler_KC. I'm in Peyton_R. Same, that was it. That was the crime. Emma had written a good essay. She'd been smart and hard-working and earnest, and for that, they'd decided to destroy her. I don't know how long I sat there in the hallway. Time had stopped meaning anything. Eventually, I stood up, legs numb, and put the phone back on Emma's nightstand. She was still asleep, her face peaceful in a way it never was when she was awake. I went downstairs, sat at the kitchen table, and stared at the wall until the sun came up. The hospital. At 7:30 that morning, I went to check on Emma. She wasn't in her bed. Em, I called. No answer. I checked her bathroom. The door was locked. Emma? Silence. Something primal took over. I slammed my shoulder into the door, once, twice, and it splintered open. Emma was on the floor, slumped against the bathtub, barely conscious. An empty prescription bottle lay beside her. My old sleeping pills from after Margaret died. Pills I'd thought I'd thrown away years ago. I don't remember calling 911. I don't remember the paramedics arriving. I only remember riding in the ambulance, holding her hand, her pulse weak and fluttery under my fingers, and praying to a God I'd stop believing in somewhere around Baghdad. They pumped her stomach at Oak Hill Regional. I sat in the waiting room, covered in my daughter's vomit, and stared at the floor while a kind nurse brought me water I couldn't drink. Dr. Reyes, a young resident with tired eyes, came out around noon. She's stable. She's going to be okay physically. But, Mr. Collins, we need to keep her for psychiatric evaluation. This was a serious attempt. I know. Does she have a therapist? She will now. Any idea what triggered this? Yes. My voice sounded distant, mechanical. I know exactly what triggered this. The school's response. Emma stayed in the hospital for 3 days. I barely left her side. When she was awake, she wouldn't speak, just stared at the ceiling with empty eyes. The hospital psychiatrist, Dr. Okafor, was patient and gentle, but Emma remained silent. On the second day, I called Ashford Academy and asked to speak to Principal Richard Whitmore. His assistant said he was in meetings but would return my call. He didn't. I called again, and again. Finally, on the afternoon of the third day, he answered. Mr. Collins, I'm so sorry to hear about Emma. We're all just heartbroken. I need to meet with you, immediately. Of course. How about next Monday? Today. I'm afraid that's impossible. I have a board meeting, and then... Principal Whitmore, my daughter tried to kill herself because of what's happening at your school. You will meet with me today, or I will be standing in your lobby until you do. A pause. Then, I can do 4 o'clock. At 4 o'clock exactly, I sat across from Principal Whitmore in his oak-paneled office. Oil paintings of Ashford's founder lined the walls. Through the window, I could see students in uniforms walking across the pristine quad, laughing and carefree. I appreciate you seeing me, I started. Of course, Emma is a valued member of our community. We want to support her in any way we can. I pulled out my phone and opened the screenshots I'd taken of the group chat. I'd spent hours the previous night documenting everything. Every message, every photo, every coordinated act of cruelty. These are from a group chat created by 3 of your students, Madison Ashford, Tyler Kent Chambers, and Peyton Rothman. They've spent the last 6 months systematically bullying my daughter. This is why she tried to end her life. I handed him the phone. He scrolled through in silence, his expression carefully neutral. Mr. Collins, This is certainly concerning. Concerning? But we have to be careful about jumping to conclusions. Teenagers communicate in ways that can seem harsh to adult eyes, but... Read the message from December 14th. The one where they coordinate to ensure nobody speaks to Emma or invites her to social events. He read it. His jaw tightened, but his voice remained smooth. I understand this looks bad, but Madison and Tyler are good kids from good families. They've been at Ashford since kindergarten. They're top students, athletes, leaders. This isn't characteristic of them. That doesn't change what they did. What I'm saying, Mr. Collins, is that there might be context we're missing. Teenage social dynamics are complex, and Emma, he hesitated. Emma is a scholarship student. She came from homeschooling. She may have struggled to fit in. Are you suggesting this is her fault? Not fault, but perhaps she misinterpreted social cues. Perhaps she was overly sensitive to normal adolescent interactions. My hands clenched into fists under the desk. Principal Whitmore, they called her scholarship rat and charity case. They put sticky notes on her locker telling her to leave. Oh, they spread rumors that she cheated to get in. They created a group chat called the Scholarship Project. There's no misinterpretation here. I hear you, and we'll absolutely look into this. But I have to be frank. These are serious accusations against students whose families have deep ties to this institution. Madison's grandfather is on our board of trustees. Tyler's father is the district attorney. Peyton's family endowed our new science building. If we're going to pursue disciplinary action, I need ironclad evidence that this rises to the level of bullying as defined in our student handbook. I just showed you the evidence. Screenshots can be manipulated, Mr. Collins. I'm not saying you did. I'm just saying that's what their families' attorneys will argue. We'll need to conduct a thorough investigation, interview witnesses, review surveillance footage, follow due process. How long will that take? These things, they take time. Several weeks at least. Several weeks. I promise you, we take bullying very seriously at Ashford. In the meantime, perhaps it would be best if Emma took some time off, medical leave, to recover and get the help she needs. I stared at him. You want her to leave. I want her to heal. And sometimes the best environment for healing isn't the environment where the trauma occurred. And the 3 students who caused the trauma? What happens to them? They'll be spoken to, counseled. If the investigation determines that our policies were violated, appropriate consequences will follow. What consequences? That depends on the findings. It could range from a warning to suspension to, in extreme cases, expulsion. But probably not expulsion. He met my eyes. Mr. Collins, I'm going to be honest with you. Madison Ashford's family has been part of this school for 4 generations. Her father donated $3 million for the new auditorium. Tyler Kent Chambers is being recruited by Yale. His father has connections at the highest levels of state government. Peyton Rothman's family has endowed 3 full scholarships annually for the past decade. These are not just students. They're legacies. They're the future of this institution. So while I absolutely take your concerns seriously, I also have to balance many competing interests. Competing interests. Ashford is more than just a school, Mr. Collins. It's a community, a network. When families invest in Ashford, financially, socially, historically, they're not just paying for education. They're buying into something bigger. And that loyalty, that investment, it has to mean something. I stood up slowly. My chair scraped against the hardwood floor. Let me make sure I understand. Because these students' families are rich and connected, they get to torture my daughter without consequences. That's not what I said. It's exactly what you said. You just used prettier words. Principal Whitmore stood as well, his expression hardening. I've been patient with you, Mr. Collins. I understand you're upset, but I won't be spoken to this way in my own office. The fact is your daughter is the one who chose to take pills. That's not on Madison or Tyler or Peyton. That's on her. And perhaps on you, as her parent, for not recognizing the signs of mental illness sooner. The room went very quiet. I could hear the clock ticking on the wall, students laughing outside, the distant hum of the building's HVAC system. We're done here, I said softly. I think that's best. I'll have the withdrawal paperwork sent to you. I genuinely wish Emma all the best. I walked to the door, then turned back. One more question. That group chat. The scholarship project. Were there other targets before Emma? Something flickered across his face. I'm not at liberty to discuss other students. That's a yes. Mr. Collins, how many scholarship students have left Ashford in the past 5 years? Student attrition is confidential. How many withdrew for personal reasons or family circumstances or academic fit? He said nothing. That's what I thought, I said, and left. The police. My next stop was the Oak Hill Police Department. I asked to speak to someone in the juvenile division and was directed to a detective, Sarah Mendez, a woman in her 40s with short gray hair and a no-nonsense expression. I showed her everything. The screenshots, the timeline, the hospital records from Emma's suicide attempt. I spoke calmly, methodically, walking her through 6 months of systematic abuse. She listened, taking notes, her expression unreadable. When I finished, she sat back in her chair. Mr. Collins, I'm very sorry about what happened to your daughter, but I'm not sure there's anything criminal here. They bullied her into a suicide attempt. Bullying, unfortunately, isn't a crime in this state unless it meets very specific criteria. It has to involve threats of physical harm, stalking, or criminal harassment. Mean messages and social exclusion, as awful as they are, don't rise to that level. What about the photos? They took pictures of her without her consent and shared them in group chats. That's dicey. If the photos were taken in public spaces at school, hallways, cafeterias, there's generally no expectation of privacy. It would be different if they'd taken photos of her in a bathroom or changing room. But from what you've shown me, everything was in common areas. So they can just get away with this? I didn't say that. I said it's not criminal. There may be civil remedies. You could sue the families for emotional distress, or sue the school for negligence. But that's expensive and time-consuming, and honestly, given the resources these families have, you'd be fighting an uphill battle. So that's it? My daughter nearly dies, and there's nothing anyone can do? Detective Mendez's expression softened. Look, off the record, I have kids. If someone did this to mine, I'd want blood too. But the system isn't designed to handle social cruelty, especially not among rich kids. Their families have lawyers on retainer. They'll tie you up in court for years if you try to come after them legally. Then what do you suggest I do? She hesitated, then lowered her voice. Sometimes the best revenge is moving on. Get your daughter into therapy. Transfer her to a different school. Focus on healing. Don't let these people take up any more space in your lives. I stood up. Thank you for your time, Detective. Mr. Collins, I really am sorry. For what it's worth, if something changes, if they escalate, if there's actual criminal activity, call me immediately. I'll do whatever I can. I nodded and walked out. The investigator, I wasn't done. That evening, after visiting Emma at the hospital, she'd been moved to the psychiatric unit and was starting to talk again. Small words, quiet, and fragile. I made a call to an old friend. Marcus Rivera and I had served together in the Rangers before I'd moved to Delta, and he'd gone to CID, Criminal Investigations. After leaving the Army, He'd become a private investigator specializing in corporate espionage and fraud. We'd kept in touch over the years, occasional beers and war stories. "Danny Collins," he answered on the second ring. "It's been a minute. I need help." "What kind of help?" I told him everything. He listened without interrupting, and when I finished he was quiet for a long moment. "Those kids' parents, you know who you're dealing with, right?" "I know. Kent Chambers is the DA. He's got political ambitions. Judge Rothman has federal appointments on her record, and the Ashfords basically own half of Oak Hill." "I know, Marcus. And you still want to do this? My daughter almost died." Another pause, then, "Okay, give me a week. I'll see what I can find." "What are you looking for?" "Leverage. Everybody's got skeletons, Danny. Rich people just have nicer closets to hide them in." The first discovery. Marcus called back 6 days later. "Can you meet me? There's a diner on Route 9, couple miles outside Oak Hill. Frank's place." I met him there at 9 p.m. The diner was nearly empty, just a tired waitress and a trucker nursing coffee at the counter. Marcus was in a back booth, a manila folder in front of him. "Coffee?" he asked as I slid in across from him. "Just tell me what you found." He opened the folder. "Okay, so I started with Madison Ashford's family. Her father, Gregory Ashford, made his money in real estate development. Legitimate stuff, mostly. But about 8 years ago, his company was investigated for bid rigging on a public contract, renovation of the Oak Hill courthouse. Nothing was ever proven. Charges were dropped. Case went away quietly. How quietly? Very. The prosecutor who was handling the case suddenly transferred to a different department. The main witness got a very generous settlement and signed an NDA, and the judge who would have presided over the trial retired early with a nice consulting gig at, wait for it, Ashford Development. Corruption. Smart corruption. Nothing provable after all these years. But it establishes a pattern. The Ashfords know how to make problems disappear with money and connections. What else? Tyler Kent Chambers, his father, District Attorney Robert Kent Chambers, is squeaky clean on paper, but his son Tyler has a sealed juvenile record. I sat forward. For what? That's the problem with sealed records. They're sealed. But I've got a source in the county clerk's office. 2 years ago, when Tyler was 15, there was an incident at a party. A girl, another Ashford student, filed a complaint. Alleged sexual assault. My blood ran cold. What happened? Case never went forward. The girl's family suddenly withdrew the complaint. She transferred to boarding school in Connecticut, and the record was sealed. Tyler's father was the DA, so he buried it. That's my educated guess. I can't prove it without subpoenaing records, and you'd need a legal case to do that. But it's there. And Peyton Rothman. Judge Rothman's niece. The judge herself is clean. Federal appointee, impeccable reputation. But Peyton's parents are interesting. Father is a hedge fund manager. Mother sits on a bunch of non-profit boards. 3 years ago, the IRS opened an audit into their foundation. Turns out they were using it as a tax shelter, claiming charitable donations that never actually made it to charity. The audit quietly closed. No charges filed. Let me guess. Someone made it go away. More specifically, someone at the DOJ made it go away, and Judge Rothman has a lot of friends at DOJ. I sat back, processing. So all 3 families are connected, powerful, and used to making problems disappear. Exactly. Which is why you need to be very careful here, Danny. These aren't people who play fair. Neither am I. Marcus looked at me steadily. I know. That's what I'm worried about. What's your play here? I don't know yet, but I'm not letting this go. What does Emma want? That stopped me. What? Your daughter. What does she want? Does she want revenge, justice, or does she just want to heal and move on? I don't know. She's barely talking. Maybe ask her, because whatever you do next, it's going to affect her too. Make sure you're doing this for her, not for you. I didn't answer. Marcus pushed the folder across the table. Everything's in there. Copies of documents, names, dates. Use it however you want. But Danny, be smart. Don't do anything that puts you or Emma at risk. These people will bury you if you give them the chance. Thanks, Marcus. Be careful. Emma's voice. Emma came home from the hospital 2 weeks after her suicide attempt. She was quiet, fragile, moving through the house like a ghost. We'd set her up with a therapist, Dr. Karen Westfield, who specialized in adolescent trauma, and she went to twice-weekly sessions without complaint. But she still wasn't really talking to me, not about what mattered. One evening in late January, I made her favorite dinner, chicken parmesan, garlic bread, Caesar salad. She picked at her food, pushing lettuce around her plate. "Em," I said gently, "can we talk?" "About what?" "About what you want to do." She looked up, confused. "Do about what?" "About Madison and Tyler and Peyton. About Ashford. About what happened to you." Her face closed off immediately. "I don't want to talk about it." "I know, but we need to. Because right now they get away with everything. They keep going to school, living their lives, while you're here trying to put yourself back together, and that doesn't seem fair." "Life's not fair, Dad. You told me that when I was 8. "I know, but sometimes we can make it a little more fair." She put down her fork. "What does that mean?" "It means I've been looking into them, their families. I've found things that could make trouble for them. Real trouble." Emma's eyes widened. "What kind of things?" I hesitated, then decided she deserved honesty. "Tyler has a sealed juvenile record. There was an incident 2 years ago. A girl accused him of assault. His father buried it. Madison's family has a history of corruption. Peyton's parents committed tax fraud. It's all documented." She stared at me. "And you want to—" "What? Expose them?" "I want to do whatever you want me to do. If you want me to take this information and make sure they face consequences, I can do that. If you want me to let it go and just focus on moving forward, I can do that too. But this is your choice, Em, not mine." She was quiet for a long time, her eyes distant. When she finally spoke, her voice was very small. "I just wanted them to like me." "I know, sweetheart. I didn't do anything wrong. I wrote a good essay. I tried to be friendly. I brought cookies to share, and they hated me for it." "They're broken people, Em. Hurt people hurt people. That doesn't make it okay." "No, it doesn't." She looked down at her hands. "Part of me wants them to suffer, to feel even a fraction of what they put me through. Part of me wants their whole world to come crashing down. And the other part? The other part is just tired. So tired, Dad. I don't know if I have the energy to fight them. They're rich and connected, and they always win. Principal Whitmore made that really clear. They don't always win. They do against people like us." I reached across the table and took her hand. "Do you know what I did for 22 years in the army? You don't really talk about it. I hunted bad guys. People who thought they were untouchable because they had money or power or connections. People who hurt innocent people and thought they'd never face consequences. And you know what I learned?" "What?" "Everyone's vulnerable. Everyone has weaknesses. You just have to be patient enough to find them and brave enough to exploit them." Emma looked at me with something that might have been hope. "You really think we could win?" "I think we could make them very, very uncomfortable. I think we could make sure they don't do this to anyone else. But Em, if we do this, it won't be quiet. It won't be clean. Their families will fight back. It might get ugly." "Uglier than what they already did to me?" "Different ugly." She squeezed my hand. "I want them to face consequences. Not for revenge, or not just for revenge, but because if they get away with this, they'll keep doing it. They'll destroy other kids like me. And I can't let that happen." I squeezed back. "Then we do this together, but we do it smart. We do it right, and we don't stop until it's done." For the first time in months, Emma smiled. It was small and tentative, but it was real. "Okay, Dad, let's do it." Building the case. Over the next 3 weeks, Marcus and I worked systematically. I'd spent years in intelligence gathering, surveillance, pattern analysis, source recruitment. Now I applied those skills to 3 privileged teenagers and their powerful families. We started with Madison Ashford. Marcus had found the name of the prosecutor who'd been investigating her father 8 years ago, a man named Leonard Pruitt, who now worked for a private law firm in the city. I called him, introduced myself as a concerned parent, researching Ashford Academy, and asked if he'd be willing to meet. He agreed, though he sounded wary. We met at his office on a gray February afternoon. Pruitt was in his 60s, silver-haired and distinguished, with the cautious manner of someone who'd learned not to trust easily. "Mr. Collins, I'm not sure how I can help you. I'm trying to understand the Ashford family's influence in Oak Hill, specifically their relationship with the school and with local government." His expression darkened. "Why?" "Because their daughter is part of a group of students who systematically bullied my daughter into a suicide attempt. And when I tried to get the school to take action, I was told the Ashfords are too important to face real consequences. Pruitt was quiet for a moment. Then he got up, closed his office door, and sat back down. What I'm about to tell you is off the record. If you try to quote me or use me as a source, I'll deny everything. Understood. 8 years ago, I was prosecuting Gregory Ashford for bid rigging. It was a solid case. We had documents, witnesses, a clear pattern of corruption, and then everything fell apart. My witnesses suddenly couldn't remember key details. Documents disappeared from evidence. My supervisor told me to drop it. When I pushed back, I was reassigned to traffic court. They got to your supervisor? They got to everyone. Ashford has connections at every level. City council, county commissioners, state legislature. He makes generous campaign donations, sits on the right boards, plays golf with the right people. And when he needs favors, those favors get done. Including protecting his daughter? I wouldn't be surprised. That family operates like a mafia. Loyalty above everything, and anyone who threatens them gets crushed. What if there was a way to expose the pattern? To show that this isn't just about one case, but systematic corruption? Pruitt looked at me carefully. What kind of way? I can't say yet, but if I could provide evidence, ironclad evidence, of the Ashfords using their influence to harm people, would you be willing to go on record? Against the Ashfords, that's career suicide. Or career resurrection, finishing what you started. He considered this, his fingers drumming on his desk. If you can actually build a case, a real case, not just hearsay and speculation, I'll think about it. But Mr. Collins, you need to understand what you're up against. These people don't just have money, they have power, and they're not afraid to use it. Neither am I. The recording. Our next breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Emma had kept her phone after the hospital. Dr. Westfield thought it was important for her to maintain some sense of normalcy and connection, but I'd made her promise to block the group chat and anyone associated with it. She had, but Madison Ashford had apparently created a new account and found a way to message her directly. "Dad," Emma said one evening, her voice shaking. She messaged me again. I sat down next to her on the couch. What did she say? Emma showed me the phone. The message was from an account called Truth Speaker 2026. "Heard you tried to off yourself. That's so weak. We were just having fun. You couldn't handle normal high school social stuff, so you took pills like a coward. Pathetic. Don't blame us for your mental problems. My dad's lawyer says if you or your dad try anything, we'll sue you for defamation and harassment. So maybe just shut up and go away like you should have done in the first place." I read it twice, my jaw clenched so tight I thought my teeth might crack. "I know it's her," Emma said quietly. "The writing style, the way she talks, it's definitely Madison. Can you prove it?" "Not legally, but I know." An idea was forming. "Em, what if you responded?" "What?" "What if you got her talking, on record? Dad, I don't want to engage with her. Dr. Westfield said..." "I know, and normally I'd agree. But if we could get her to admit what they did, on record, in her own words, that's evidence the school can't dismiss. That's evidence that could actually lead to consequences." Emma looked uncertain. "How would I even do that?" "Ask her why. Tell her you're not trying to cause trouble. You just want to understand. Appeal to her ego. People like Madison love to explain themselves, to justify their actions. Get her talking, and she'll incriminate herself. And then what? Then we have ammunition." Emma thought about it, chewing her lip, a gesture so familiar from her childhood it made my chest ache. Finally, she nodded. "Okay, I'll try." Over the next week, Emma carefully crafted responses designed to draw Madison out. She played the victim, asked apologetic questions, made herself small and non-threatening, and Madison, predictably, responded. Long messages explaining how Emma had brought this on herself by being try-hard and fake, how scholarship students needed to know their place, how Emma was lucky they hadn't done worse. The most damning message came on February 17th. "Look, we didn't physically hurt you. We just made sure you knew you didn't belong. That's not bullying, that's social hierarchy. Ashford has a certain culture and you weren't a fit. We were actually doing you a favor by helping you realize that early instead of letting you waste years here being miserable. And the fact that you couldn't handle it isn't our fault. Maybe you're just not cut out for competitive environments. Not everyone is. You should probably just go to public school where the standards are lower and you don't have to compete with people who are actually smart and accomplished. Anyway, I'm done talking to you. Don't contact me again, or I'll tell my dad and he'll make your life hell. Seriously. We have lawyers. We have money. We win. You lose. That's just reality. Emma screenshot every message and sent them to me. I forwarded them to Marcus. This is good, he said when he called. Really good. She's admitting to a coordinated campaign of exclusion and psychological harm. She's acknowledging the power imbalance and using threats. Combined with the earlier group chat screenshots, this builds a pattern. Is it enough? For a lawsuit? Maybe. For getting the school to act? Possibly, if you apply the right pressure. For criminal charges? Probably not, unless you can tie it to specific threats of physical harm. But it's a start. I need more than a start, Marcus. I need a slam dunk. Then we keep digging. The former student Marcus's next lead came from deep background research. He'd been going through Ashford Academy's records, not official records which were locked tight, but public information. Yearbooks, social media, alumni directories. He was looking for patterns. Students who'd left suddenly. Families who'd filed complaints. Any hint of previous scholarship projects. He found something better. Her name is Alicia Chen, Marcus said when he called. She was an Ashford student 3 years ago. Merit scholarship like Emma. Left halfway through junior year, officially for personal reasons. But I found her LinkedIn. She's at State College now, studying engineering. I reached out, said I was investigating bullying at Ashford. She agreed to talk. Did she? She did. And Danny? It's the exact same pattern. Madison Ashford, Tyler Kent Chambers, and Peyton Rothman targeted her from day one. Group chat, social exclusion, systematic harassment. She endured it for 2 years before her parents pulled her out. They tried to fight the school, but Ashford's lawyers shut them down with cease and desist letters and threats of defamation suits. Jesus, there's more. Alicia says there were at least 2 other scholarship students before her who experienced the same thing. She doesn't have their names, but she remembers hearing whispers. It's institutional, Danny. It's not just mean kids. It's a pattern enabled by the school administration. Will she testify? Go on record? She's scared. Her parents signed NDAs as part of the withdrawal agreement. If she speaks publicly, Ashford could sue. But if she had protection, if she knew she wouldn't be alone? Maybe. You'd have to convince her. I asked Marcus for Alicia's contact information. He gave me her email address with a warning. Be gentle. She's been through hell too. I wrote to Alicia that evening. I introduced myself, told her briefly about Emma, and said I was working to hold Ashford accountable. I asked if she'd be willing to talk. She replied 2 days later, Mr. Collins, I'm so sorry about your daughter. What Madison and her friends did to me nearly destroyed me. I lost 2 years of my life to depression and anxiety. My parents spent thousands on therapy. I still have nightmares about it. But I'm scared to speak out. Ashford has powerful lawyers, and my family isn't wealthy. We can't afford to fight them. I want to help, but I don't know if I can. I wrote back, Alicia, I understand your fear, but here's what I know. Bullies rely on silence. They count on their victims being too scared or too tired to fight back. That's how they keep winning. If you're willing to tell your story, publicly, on record, you won't be alone. There are other families, other students. Together we can build a case Ashford can't silence. I'm not asking you to do this for me. I'm asking you to do it for the next scholarship student who walks through those gates. Because if we don't stop this, it will keep happening. I promise I will protect you however I can. But I need your help. She replied the next day. Okay, I'm in. Tell me what you need. The gathering storm. By early March we had built a substantial case, screenshots from Emma's phone documenting 6 months of harassment, messages from Madison admitting to the campaign and threatening legal retaliation, testimony from Alicia Chen describing an identical pattern of abuse 3 years earlier, evidence from Marcus's investigation suggesting corruption in all 3 families, Leonard Pruitt quietly agreeing to serve as a legal consultant if we moved forward. But we still didn't have enough to force real action. Principal Whitmore could dismiss Emma's and Alicia's accounts as he said, she said. The family's lawyers could tie us up in litigation for years. We needed something bigger, something public, something undeniable. We need media, Marcus said when we met at Frank's Diner again. If this becomes a news story, Ashford can't bury it. Public pressure forces accountability. How do we get media interested? You need a compelling narrative. Rich kids bullying scholarship students, school covering it up, powerful families using influence to silence victims. That's already good. But you need a hook, something that makes it irresistible to reporters. I thought about it. Then an idea came. What if it's not just about Emma and Alicia? What if we can show that Ashford has a systemic problem with protecting wealthy students and punishing vulnerable ones? How do you prove that? Tyler Kent Chambers' sealed juvenile record, the sexual assault allegation that got buried. If we can connect that to the school's pattern of protecting privileged students. Marcus shook his head. Sealed records are sealed for a reason, Danny. You can't just unseal them without a court order. And to get a court order, you'd need legal grounds. What if the victim went public, on her own terms, not through the court system? That's possible. But finding her, convincing her to talk, that's a long shot. Everything about this is a long shot. Marcus sighed. All right, I'll see what I can find. The assault victim. It took Marcus 2 weeks to track her down. Her name was Sophie Brennan. She'd been a sophomore at Ashford 3 years ago when the incident happened. Now she was at boarding school in Connecticut, preparing for college. Marcus got her email address but advised me not to contact her directly. This is delicate, Danny. She was 15 when this happened. If Tyler's family finds out someone's digging into this, they'll come down hard. But I didn't have to reach out, because 3 days later I received an email from an address I didn't recognize. Mr. Collins, my name is Sophie. I heard you're investigating Ashford Academy and the Kent Chambers family. I want to help. Can we talk? I called Marcus immediately. Did you contact her? No, I swear. Then how did she find me? I don't know. But Danny, be very careful. This could be a setup. I wrote back to Sophie asking how she'd gotten my contact information. She replied, Alicia Chen is my cousin. She told me what you're doing. I want to tell my story, but not over email. Can we meet? We arranged a video call. Sophie appeared on screen. A young woman with dark eyes and a guarded expression, sitting in what looked like a dorm room. Thank you for talking to me, I said. Alicia says you're trying to hold Ashford accountable. I am. Then I'll tell you what happened. But you have to promise me something first. What? You have to promise that if I do this, if I go public, you'll make sure Tyler Kent Chambers faces real consequences. Not just school consequences, real ones. I'll do everything in my power. She took a deep breath. Okay. 3 years ago, when I was 15, I was invited to a party at Madison Ashford's house. It was the first time the popular kids had included me in anything, and I was excited. Stupid, but excited. She paused, her jaw tight. I stayed quiet, letting her find her words. Tyler was there. He was friendly, funny. He offered me a drink. I don't know if he put something in it, or if I just drank too much too fast, but I got really out of it really fast. The next thing I clearly remember is being in a bedroom upstairs. Tyler was there. And he didn't stop when I said no. My hands clenched into fists. Sophie's voice remained steady, but her eyes were wet. I told my parents the next day. They went to the police. The police took my statement, did a rape kit. There was evidence, physical evidence. But then Tyler's father got involved. He's the district attorney. Suddenly the detective handling my case was transferred. A new detective reviewed everything and said there wasn't enough evidence to prosecute. My parents hired a lawyer, but Tyler's family hired better lawyers. They threatened to sue us for defamation, to destroy my father's business, to make our lives hell. Eventually my parents settled. I agreed not to press charges. They paid for my boarding school, and everything was sealed. I'm so sorry, Sophie. The worst part? Ashford knew. Principal Whitmore knew. The school counselor knew. And they did nothing. They kept Tyler enrolled, kept him in leadership positions, kept treating him like a golden child, because his father is powerful and my family isn't. Will you tell this story publicly? Yes, I'm 18 now. The NDA my parents signed doesn't apply to me anymore, and I'm tired of being silent. Tyler's family will come after you. Let them. I'm not scared anymore. The article with Sophie's testimony, Alicia's corroboration, Emma's documentation, and Marcus's evidence of systemic corruption, we finally had enough. I reached out to Rebecca Torres, an investigative journalist who'd done extensive work on institutional abuse and cover-ups. I'd read her articles in the past. She was thorough, fair, and fearless. I sent her a detailed email outlining everything we'd found. She responded within an hour. This is explosive. Let's talk. We spoke for 2 hours. I walked her through the entire case, the group chats, the harassment campaign, the school's refusal to act, Tyler's assault of Sophie and the subsequent cover-up, the pattern of targeting scholarship students, the family's use of wealth and influence to avoid consequences. This is a major story, Rebecca said when I finished, but I need to verify everything independently. I'll need to interview Emma, Alicia, and Sophie. I'll need to see the original screenshots and documents. I'll need responses from Ashford, from the families, from the police. This will take time. How much time? A few weeks, maybe a month. I want to do this right. Can you protect Emma and Sophie and Alicia? I'll keep them anonymous unless they want to go public with their names. I'll be careful with how I frame the story to minimize legal exposure. But Mr. Collins, you need to understand, once this publishes, there's no going back. These families will retaliate. They'll sue. They'll dig into your background. They'll try to discredit everyone involved. Are you prepared for that? Yes. And Emma? Is she prepared? I looked over at Emma, who was sitting across the room doing homework. She'd been getting stronger every day, going to therapy, slowly rebuilding her confidence, even talking about taking online classes to finish junior year. She looked up and met my eyes, and I saw determination there. Yes, I said. We're ready. The publication. Rebecca's article published on April 2nd in the state's largest newspaper, both in print and online. The headline read, Elite Academy's Dark Secret, How Wealthy Students Systematically Target Scholarship Recipients While School Looks Away. The article was devastating. Rebecca had interviewed Emma, Alicia, and Sophie, all three on the record, using their real names. She'd obtained copies of the group chats, the threatening messages, the school's dismissive responses. She'd documented Tyler Kent Chambers' sealed juvenile record and the allegation of assault, Sophie's account of what happened and how it was covered up, and the Kent Chambers family's use of influence to bury the case. She'd exposed the pattern of scholarship students being forced out of Ashford after experiencing targeted harassment. She'd quoted Leonard Pruitt about the Ashford family's history of corruption and influence peddling. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Within hours, the story was trending on social media. Parents of current and former Ashford students began sharing their own stories of bullying and institutional indifference. Alumni came forward with accounts of harassment they'd experienced or witnessed. Education advocates called for investigations. Legal experts weighed in on the civil and criminal implications. By that evening, local news stations were covering the story. By the next morning, it had gone national. Principal Richard Whitmore released a statement. Ashford Academy takes all allegations seriously and is conducting a thorough internal review. It was universally mocked as inadequate. Madison Ashford, Tyler Kent Chambers, and Peyton Rothman went dark on social media. Their accounts were deleted or made private. The Kent Chambers family issued a statement through their lawyer. The allegations against Tyler are false and defamatory. The matter was fully investigated years ago and found to lack merit. We are exploring all legal options against those who have made these baseless claims. Sophie responded on Twitter. I was 15. I said no. You used your power to silence me. Not anymore. #Believe survivors. The tweet went viral. The fallout. The pressure on Ashford Academy became unbearable. Within a week of the article's publication, the Board of Trustees announced an independent investigation into the school's handling of bullying and harassment. 2 board members resigned. Principal Whitmore was placed on administrative leave. District Attorney Robert Kent Chambers faced calls to recuse himself from any matters involving his son. An ethics complaint was filed with the state bar. Protesters gathered outside his office demanding his resignation. Judge Eleanor Rothman issued a statement distancing herself from her niece. I was unaware of Peyton's alleged actions. If true, they do not reflect the values I uphold. Gregory Ashford made no public statements, but his company suddenly faced renewed scrutiny. The old bid-rigging case was reopened by a new prosecutor. Federal investigators began looking into his real estate dealings. And at Ashford Academy itself, students began to revolt. A group of scholarship recipients organized a walkout, demanding policy changes and accountability. Other students joined them. Parents threatened to withdraw their children and donations unless real reforms were implemented. Madison, Tyler, and Peyton were quietly expelled. Not officially, but through voluntary withdrawal agreements that allowed them to transfer to other private schools without disciplinary records. It wasn't the public accountability we'd hoped for, but it was something. More importantly, Ashford Academy announced sweeping policy changes: mandatory anti-bullying training for all students and staff, an anonymous reporting system, a new position dedicated to student welfare, zero-tolerance policies for harassment, regardless of family status or financial contributions. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. Sophie's justice. The most significant development came in May. After weeks of public pressure and the resurfacing of evidence from Sophie's case, the State Attorney General's office announced that it was reviewing the handling of Tyler Kent Chambers' juvenile assault allegation. New information has come to light suggesting potential prosecutorial misconduct. The AG's statement read, "We take these allegations seriously and are conducting a thorough review." District Attorney Kent Chambers recused himself and took a sudden leave of absence. The lead detective who'd buried Sophie's case was suspended pending investigation. And on May 23rd, Tyler Kent Chambers was arrested and charged as an adult with sexual assault. Because the crime had occurred when he was 16 and new evidence had emerged, prosecutors argued that the case should be reopened and tried in adult court. His family hired an army of lawyers. The case would likely drag on for years. But for the first time, Tyler was facing real consequences. Sophie called me the day of his arrest. "I never thought this would happen," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "I thought he'd just get away with it forever." "You were brave," I told her. "You spoke up when it mattered." "We all were. Emma and Alicia and you. We did this together." "Yeah, we did." Healing. Through all of this, Emma was healing. Slowly, painfully, but genuinely. She continued therapy with Dr. Westfield. She took online classes and finished junior year with straight A's. She started painting again, something she'd loved before Ashford, but had abandoned during those dark months. In June, she was accepted into a summer program for gifted students interested in biology at the State University. She was nervous about being around other students, but Dr. Westfield encouraged her. "It's time to start building new memories," the therapist said. "Good ones." Emma went, and she thrived. She made friends, real friends, who valued her for her mind and her kindness. She came home each evening excited about her research project and the people in her cohort. "They're like me," she said one night at dinner. "They're nerdy and passionate, and they don't care about stupid social hierarchies. They just want to learn." Watching her smile again, genuinely smile with light in her eyes, was worth everything. The civil suit. In July, with Leonard Pruitt's help, we filed a civil lawsuit against Madison Ashford, Tyler Kent Chambers, Peyton Rothman, and their families, as well as Ashford Academy. The suit alleged intentional infliction of emotional distress, negligence, and civil conspiracy. "We probably won't win," Leonard warned. "These families have unlimited resources for legal defense. But even if we lose, we're putting their actions on public record. We're forcing them to answer for what they did." The suit made headlines again. More former Ashford students came forward with their own stories. A class action lawsuit began to form. In September, facing overwhelming negative publicity and the prospect of years of expensive litigation, the Ashford family, the Kent Chambers family, and the Rothman family approached us with a settlement offer. They would pay a substantial sum to Emma, Alicia, and Sophie, enough to cover college tuition and therapy costs, with significant additional damages. They would issue public apologies. They would fund a new scholarship program at Ashford dedicated to supporting low-income students. And they would agree to ongoing monitoring of their children's behavior and mandatory counseling. It wasn't everything, but it was accountability. Emma, Alicia, and Sophie discussed it together and agreed to accept. "I don't want to spend the next 5 years in court," Emma said. "I want to move on. I want to live my life." "Then that's what we'll do," I said. Epilogue. It's September now, almost a year since Emma first walked through Ashford Academy's gates. She's applying to colleges, top biology programs, schools where she can pursue her passion for marine science. Her application essays are powerful and honest, writing about resilience and justice and finding her voice. We still sit on the front porch on summer evenings, rocking in those old chairs, watching fireflies in the garden. Emma tells me about her research project, something involving bioluminescent organisms and ecological adaptation. I don't understand half of it, but I love hearing her talk. "Dad," she said last week, I've been thinking. About what? About writing a book, about what happened, for other kids who are going through what I went through. I think that's a great idea, Em. Dr. Westfield thinks so too. She says turning trauma into purpose is part of healing. She's right. Emma was quiet for a moment, then looked at me. Thank you, for not letting them get away with it, for fighting for me. Always, Em, always. She smiled, that bright, genuine smile I'd thought I'd lost forever, and went back to her laptop, already typing the first words of her story. The house was quiet. The evening was warm. Somewhere in the distance I could hear the neighbor's dog barking and children laughing. Normal sounds. Safe sounds. This was our life now. Not perfect, but ours. Not untouched by darkness, but not defined by it either. We'd fought. We'd survived. We'd won. And that was enough.